There's a new sheriff in town when it comes to the Walt Disney World Resort, and his name is Robert Iger. That's right, he's back in the saddle again. And he's here to make some changes to let you know that he's no Bob Paycheck JPEG. So, everybody get ready, buckle in, and we're about to dive straight into all the changes that are coming to the Walt Disney World Resort real soon. Hang in there and enjoy. Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. That's what we do every single day right here on the WDW Pro channel. And we're going to keep going with that today. By the way, happy Saturday to all of you out there. We finally made it. We made it to the weekend. If you're watching this on day one, and if you're on day two, it's still Sunday. By day three, if you still haven't seen this video and you're just now starting, well, apologies on the Monday. Hang in there. It's going to be all right. While you're watching this video, make sure to click the like button, click the subscribe button, share this thing out there, and that little notification bell, it's so much fun. You should totally click it. And if you click it, you will stick it to the algorithms and let them know that this is the place to go for all the info out of WDW Pro. All right, so we are looking today at That Park Place, an article that I did called Iger at Walt Disney World with other leaders, but why? And this is one of those videos that, well, this is going to be fun. We're going to be covering some fun stuff. I don't want to be known as a channel where you go for nonstop negativity. I think that would be a very bad idea and would be draining on all of us. So we want to talk about some good and happy things today. We also are not going to be covering Disney every single day, but Disney is the top of the top in a lot of different domains, and we do need to cover this. Now, this article came out on January 19th, but it's still pertinent, and we need to talk about what's going on. I'll read it, and then I will give my commentary as we go along. It's a big deal when the top brass of the Walt Disney Company show up at Walt Disney World, despite the sprawling resort of 40 square miles being the crown jewel of the Disney parks portfolio. Getting down to Florida isn't always something the Californian leaders want to do. And that is absolutely true, by the way. In fact, it's a little bit of an ordeal for them to go to Walt Disney World. That's because they have to fly over from California. And also, just the difficulty in comparison to hopping on over to Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, it's more cumbersome, I would say. When the leaders from Burbank are seen at Disney World, it's often for a photo opportunity. That is also true. They're there to be seen. Otherwise, why would they be out in the open, right? It's a chance to put a public relations spin on something. After all, traveling to Florida takes time out of being in Southern Cali. Going to Disneyland is far less cumbersome. So there's that word again. So it is important when someone like Robert Iger shows up that we take note of it and ask the question why. And I would also suggest to all of you watching this right now, consider how often Robert Iger went to Walt Disney World in the past. And then all of a sudden, he is all over the place with the Disney parks, now showing up at Disney Parks Crown Jewel Resort. I go on to talk about the Instagram photo here. And of course, that's taken. We can tell that's Animal Kingdom, of course, but you can also tell that it's at the edge of Pandora, almost certainly because of the coloration on the pavement there, which is probably the bioluminescent paint in the groundwork to make it light up at night. Doesn't do quite as well as they had hoped, though. It's not quite as bright as they wanted it to be originally. That's a side note. In the case of Iger visiting Disney World yesterday with the other Disney VIPs, it may not have been all style with no substance. That's unusual, and it really is. Usually when they show up, it's to be seen. But I am told by a source that there were actually important things on the docket while Mr. Iger was/is visiting. Here are the things relayed to me that Disney top leadership may be in town to discuss. All right, so let's look at these. First of all, Epcot. It looks like a construction zone. It has looked like a construction zone. It's difficult to transverse. We have, it's just a mess. This thing has been a mess for years now. 3 things at Epcot are under consideration for the future. So let's take a look at these 3 things that I'm being told are under consideration and may have been on the schedule for Robert Iger and his team to look at. And then I'm going to give you some reasons for why this is. Iger is said to want his touch on the replacement for Harmonious. Chapek, that's the former CEO of the Walt Disney Company, who was there for 10 months and then taken back out again by Iger and his crew. Remember that Iger was at Disney forever and continued to be difficult to remove from his position as CEO. He was repeatedly supposed to step down and hand it over and didn't. Chapek finally took the reins of the company, and then it was only 10 months that Chapek was able to serve before Iger and his allies had removed Chapek and put Iger back in control. Chapek had a huge hand in making Harmonious, so tearing it down and replacing it with something that keeps Iger's legacy alive a decade in the future is desirable. And Harmonious was largely disliked. It was so disliked that they're willing to spend bukus of money to get rid of this thing. It's going to cost a ton. They're also willing to spend a ton of money to make a new show, basically 2 years after they spent a ton of money to make a new show. But one of the key things to know here is that Harmonious was one of the only things that had the direct fingerprints of Bob Chapek on it. So Harmonious was heavily influenced by Chapek and his desires. It's one of the only things that he sort of took a directorial kind of approach to and largely disliked. So it's a great opportunity for Iger then to come in to get rid of it, spend the money it takes to get rid of it, and put in something that will then be retroactively part of his legacy once he steps down, if that ever happens, which who knows. But Harmonious was a big time eyesore. Now, note to everybody out there, you're not going to hear this on any other channel, I don't believe. In case you are wondering, what is the other thing that will live on and have Chapek's name attached to it for years and years to come? It's really funny because most people don't associate this, and the people who hate Chapek tend to be in favor of this project. What's the one other thing that Bob Chapek had very close ties to and impact on? What's the thing that he greenlit? And that's Tianas Bayou Adventure replacing Splash Mountain, which, by the way, Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World ends Sunday night. So there you go. And then I also have the date for when it will end at Disneyland. I'm going to hold that, though, in case that date changes. I don't want to put out bad information. So let it be said that when I have information that I could leak out, I don't unless I'm fairly certain that it won't be wrong later on. Because if they were to change that, and if I were to put out that date, and then somebody made a decision about when they're going to Disneyland, I would feel really bad about that. So we don't want to do that. All right, number 2, in an absolute shock to me, apparently the Disney leaders toured the Journey into Imagination building and backstage areas of the structure. No official word on what that was about, but Disney Parks may try to do a refresh on Journey in time for the forthcoming Figment movie. I find all of that very interesting. I find it interesting that they're going to do a movie about Figment, who is the mascot, once part of the Dreamfinder Figment duo. Now you hardly ever see Dreamfinder, but Figment, the mascot of Epcot, very popular in the 80s and then was pulled back quite a bit. But I just find that fascinating. They're going to do a movie about Figment. And then I can definitely see that it would fit in with Iger's ambitions for his legacy if the final sort of big change for Epcot was a redo for Journey into Imagination. Let's call it 4.0. For those who don't know, that was once one of the most beloved attractions in all of Disney parks, and it was just, honestly, desecrated through incompetence. They attempted to redo that ride and did it so poorly then that they had to jettison that, come up with something that's rideable, let's say, and still that has almost no queue, no line. Nobody really wants to go do it. Can't blame them for that. But there may be an attempt to do a new one, and that may coincide with the movie coming out. Number 3, although I couldn't find out if they went near the Wonders of Life Pavilion, allegedly there's a new push to get that area at least turned into a premier special event venue, and there may be more than that on the way. One of the reasons I can't get that information is because a lot of the stuff that I knew from sources about Disney parks and about Disney World and where this was going came to me before Iger was put back in charge. And once he was put back in charge, in my opinion, anything that was stamped with Chapek's name on it becomes questionable as to whether or not it will actually come to fruition. The exception of that being Splash Mountain transitioned, I think, as a horrible idea, but into Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And the reason that is basically safe completely, regardless of how many petitions come out, is because it has, it would have a major social impact on Disney if they were to change course now. It would be portrayed negatively by some of the demographics and some of the groups that Disney wants to cater to. All right, moving right along. Then at Animal Kingdom, I'm told there is extreme interest now in an expansion at Pandora, and there is big time interest. That's moving. Two major areas exist for the company to push into, with the most likely next spot being behind the Rainforest Cafe. As for Iger, showed up with Demaro and Vahle. Even with Demaro, he made a statement recently about his ability to make decisions sans approval from higher up. So that's a funny story there. The head of Disney Parks, Josh, said that some of the decisions he made that were consumer friendly, he didn't have to seek help from Iger. It didn't matter that there was a new CEO in charge. I found that funny. It seems to me that he was over all the decisions that people perceive as bad over the Disney parks when Chapek was in control. Now he's doing these opposite things, and he wants full credit of those, but may want you to memory hole all the things that were put in place that make you have to essentially live on your phones while you're at Disney parks, right? You have to stare down at that little screen all the time, making reservations and checking to see what's going on, rather than taking in the ambiance and the beauty of the parks, which is really what you should be doing. I just find that to be really problematic for Disney, and I wish they would get away from it. I know that the real world has us on our small screens, and God bless those little small screens, because you may be watching this, listening to this on one of your small screens. But when you go to a Disney park, most people want to be free from those constraints, right? And you want to have your horizons broadened. When you walk down Main Street, you want to be looking at the castle, and you want to be looking at all the sights and sounds and focusing in. I mean, that's why you paid those thousands of dollars to be there. So anything that puts me back on that small screen instead, I think, is a disservice to the park experience, both in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Now, there's been some additional news as well, and that additional news is that the Starcruiser over the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, let me get it out there, is going to be going through some negative situations, let's say. This is being covered over on WDWNT.com. But they've been talking about how that some of the summer voyages, it's sometimes hard to even come up with what you're going to say about these things, but some of the summer voyages are having to be canceled. And so one of the things that I find interesting about that is that they're talking about the summer voyages, okay? So I'm not going to go too deeply into this because I want to save it for a video that Valiant Renegade is actually working on. I highly recommend that you go check out that video once it debuts. Make sure you go check out Valiant Renegade's video on the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. But just remember from this video, I'm not going to go into it too much, but just remember, they are canceling summer voyages. Summer. Keep that in mind if you want to know how bad the situation is. All right, that is going to conclude today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some insights into what's coming down the pike for the Walt Disney World Resort. It's not all. There's going to be some more stuff. I've got some more things that I want to talk with you very soon about, and we'll get to all of that in the forthcoming days and weeks. I also want to get off of the topic of Disney soon and talk about some other stuff, but that's what we've got for you today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're having a wonderful time with friends and family and all those you care about. Make sure you click like, share, subscribe, and click the cute little bell. And ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do, wherever you are, make sure that you keep having fun.